I wasn't the most social guy in college. I didn't make great grades, wasn't in a fraternity, and didn't have a girlfriend or a solid friend group. Honestly, I was a bit of a loner, but I'm not complaining. I found my happiness later in life. Now in my 30s, I live with my girlfriend, Mandy, and our 2 cats, Sable and Midnight. Life is good, and I'm planning to propose soon. But back in college, it was just me, Evan, and Derek. None of us were into the usual college scene, but we tried to make the most of our weekends. We weren't partiers, but we weren't going to pass up a good opportunity when it came around either. So when Derek heard about a party from a girl he was talking to, we thought, why not? Evan wasn't thrilled about going. He had his reservations about Derek's taste in people, but we didn't have anything better to do. We jumped in Evan's car and headed out. The house was in the middle of nowhere, a solid 45-minute drive from campus, but Derek assured us it'd be worth it. We were hesitant, especially since the girl who'd invited him, Sarah, hadn't been responding to his texts for a few hours. Derek shrugged it off, saying she was probably busy. Still, he was bummed she'd ghosted him, but we were already on the road. As we pulled up to the house, it was immediately clear that this wasn't your typical college party. The place was huge, standing out against the smaller, more run-down houses in the area. The driveway and front lawn were packed with cars, and people were streaming inside in fancy, formal attire, far too dressy for a random college party. Evan, who'd planned to be our sober driver, raised an eyebrow. "What is this, a cocktail party?" he muttered. We parked down the block, grabbed the beers we'd brought, and hung around the car for a while, drinking and trying to loosen up. When we finally walked in, everything about the place felt off. Bright lights illuminated the space, which wasn't what you'd expect for a party. The music wasn't the usual loud hip-hop or trap. It was strange, almost dreamlike, with no lyrics, just soft, eerie instruments. The vibe was weird, but the party was packed, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. We wandered around for a bit, helping ourselves to the drinks scattered around. The people there were definitely a different crowd, though dressed to the nines and acting like this was some high-class social event. And then there was something else. The way they looked at us. It was subtle, but there was this weird vibe, like we didn't belong. Every time I made eye contact with someone, they'd glance away quickly, making me feel like I had something on my face. We brushed it off. That's when 3 girls approached us. They were way too confident, and their attention felt strange. I'll admit, it was flattering, but it seemed almost too easy. One of them, Megan, joked about us paying an entrance fee, which we laughed off, thinking it was just a bad pickup line. Then they offered us tequila shots, and we couldn't say no. Things felt more normal after that, or maybe we were just drunk enough to stop caring. As I chatted with Megan, I noticed something odd on her neck, a thin, dark blue line, like a tattoo or a marker. It was barely noticeable, but once I saw it, I couldn't look away. I debated asking her about it, but thought better of it, not wanting to be weird. Things took a turn when Evan decided to head back to the car for a smoke. He didn't drink, so maybe the awkwardness was getting to him. After he left, Derek disappeared with his girl upstairs. Shortly after, I noticed the same thing happen with Evan. He and Megan started wandering toward the stairs, leaving me alone. I felt a wave of anxiety. Maybe it was the alcohol, but something about the whole situation was eating at me. I needed a break. I excused myself to go to the bathroom and waited outside the door. When it finally opened, this tall, older guy walked out. He bumped into me, but didn't apologize. Instead, he just stood there, staring at me with this dead expression. Then I saw the same blue line, identical to the one on Megan's neck. Against my better judgment, I asked, "What's with the mark?" He smirked. "Who invited you?" His voice was low, almost mocking. I stammered, "Or Derek's friend, Sarah." His smirk grew, but it wasn't friendly. "Do you see Sarah here?" I blinked, my mind racing. I hadn't seen her all night. The unease I'd felt earlier twisted into full-blown panic. I brushed past him into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I needed a minute to clear my head. When I stepped out, the guy was gone, but his words echoed in my mind. I started scanning the crowd, and that's when I noticed more of them people with the same strange marks on their necks. Blue lines, all the same length and thickness, decorating more necks than I could count. I found Derek and Evan in a hallway, laughing about their hookups. When I pointed out the marks, they looked at me like I was crazy. But then, Evan rubbed his neck, and my heart sank. A red line had appeared on his skin, faint but growing more distinct by the second. Derek had one too red, just like Evan's. "What the hell is that?" I demanded, my voice trembling. Evan laughed it off, probably just some makeup from the girls, but Derek wasn't so sure. He rubbed at the mark, and when it didn't come off, his face paled. Before we could say anything else, one of the guys from the party passed us by. He didn't say a word, just gave us a long, unsettling look. Sure enough, the blue line was on his neck, too. "We need to leave, now." I grabbed Derek and Evan, pulling them toward the front door. The house felt like it was closing in around us. Eyes followed us, but no one moved to stop us. When we got to the car, Evan's phone buzzed. It was Megan. "Where are you? Come back." The text sent a chill down my spine. We hadn't even told them we were leaving. Derek's phone lit up, too. The same message from his girl. "Where are you?" We sped off into the night, hearts racing. To this day, I have no idea what was happening at that party or what those marks meant. Every once in a while, I think about that night, about the strange people, the eerie music, and the looks they gave us. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed. But then I remember the guy's question, "Who invited you?" and the smirk that followed. It's a question I never want the answer to. I'm studying for my master's degree in architecture at Rockford University. I only started a few months ago, but things were going well. My classes weren't overwhelming. I made a few friends, and my apartment, though small, was affordable for a grad student like me. The landlord seemed shady, but I figured as long as I paid rent on time, it wouldn't be an issue. I'm in my late 20s, and I've been through enough to think I could handle myself, especially in this neighborhood. I had a car, and my apartment was a bit of a drive from campus, but I didn't mind. The area was run down, but I wasn't planning on staying long. I was here for my degree, not to explore the nightlife. That's why when my backpack got stolen, I thought it was just another annoyance. I had left it on a bench in the campus courtyard while I ran to the student center restroom. Like an idiot. By the time I got back, it was gone. No cameras, no one around to ask. I was furious, but mostly inconvenienced. My laptop, wallet, keys, everything was in that bag. I canceled my cards, reported my keys missing to the landlord, and started saving for a new laptop. It sucked, but life happens. What I didn't realize was that this situation would spiral into something much worse. A few days later, I got home from class, tired and ready to crash. As I approached my apartment, I noticed a small slip of paper sticking out from under my door. I figured it was just a note from my landlord about maintenance or something, but when I picked it up and read it, my blood ran cold. "I see you." Those were the only words written on the note. No name, no explanation, just that. My heart started racing as I pieced it together. Whoever had taken my backpack must have gone through my stuff. Maybe they'd found my address saved on my laptop. But worse than that, they had my apartment keys. Panic set in. I ran inside and bolted the door behind me. I had a deadlock, so I figured I was safe for the moment. But the thought of someone out there knowing exactly where I lived and being able to get in was suffocating. That night, I barely slept. The notes didn't stop. Over the next week, they appeared under my door like clockwork, each one creepier than the last. They weren't long, just vague phrases like, "I know what you did," or "watch your back." I was losing my mind. I hadn't done anything wrong, but this person had gone through my personal belongings. Maybe they knew secrets I hadn't even realized were on my laptop. I thought about going to the police, but I hesitated. What would they do? It was just notes, and nothing had happened to me yet. Maybe it would stop if I just ignored it. That hope shattered the following night. I was getting ready for bed when I noticed a flash outside my window. It was faint, but unmistakable. Someone was taking pictures of me. I rushed to the window, yanked the blinds down, but saw nothing. The street outside was empty. After that, strange things began happening inside my apartment. It started small. My books would be moved, my shoes in the wrong place. I convinced myself I was just being forgetful, trying to rationalize the situation, but then it escalated. I came home one day to find my bed completely stripped. My room was torn apart, drawers pulled open, clothes scattered everywhere. It was as if someone had ransacked the place. My heart pounded in my chest as I called the police, desperate for help. They came, took a look, and shrugged. There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing was stolen, just disturbed. They said there wasn't much they could do without more evidence. I felt helpless. I called my landlord again, begging him to change the locks. He said it would take a few days for someone to come out. I didn't have a few days. I was living in fear, waiting for the next note, the next invasion of my personal space. My landlord stopped responding after that, no matter how many times I called. By this point, I was running on pure adrenaline. I didn't trust anyone, especially not in this creepy neighborhood. I barely left my apartment, skipping class and staying home, trapped by my own paranoia. Each night I lay awake, listening for any sound, any sign that my stalker was nearby. Then came the breaking point. It was 2 nights ago. I'd barricaded myself in my bedroom, determined not to let this person get the better of me. The lights were off, and I was sitting in the dark, my phone in hand, when I heard a soft click, like the sound of a door being unlocked. My blood turned to ice. I listened, frozen in place, as footsteps padded softly down the hallway toward my bedroom. They stopped just outside the door. My heart was hammering so loudly I was sure whoever was out there could hear it. Then came the whisper, a low, almost playful voice from the other side of the door. "You're home early." I couldn't move. My mind raced. Whoever this was had been in my apartment before. They knew my schedule. My blood boiled with fear and anger. I wasn't going to sit there and wait for them to do whatever they were planning. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by my bed, swung the door open, and no one was there. The hallway was empty, but the front door was wide open. I ran outside into the cold night, scanning the street for any sign of movement, but whoever had been there was gone. The police came again, just as useless as before. No sign of forced entry, no one in the area, nothing on the security cameras. They told me it was probably just a prank, but I knew better. The next morning, I packed up as much as I could fit into my car and left that apartment for good. I'm staying at a motel now, trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to confront my landlord. Why was he so casual about the whole thing? Did he know more than he was letting on? But honestly, I don't care. I'm just glad to be out of that place. I don't know who it was or why they chose me, but as I write this, a new thought crosses my mind, a terrifying thought. Whoever it was, they still have my keys, and I never turned in my new address. I've been holding back on sharing this, but it's gotten to the point where I can't stay silent anymore. My name is Maya, and I go to Westwood University. The nightmare started after a breakup with my boyfriend of 2 years, Ethan. It wasn't a dramatic breakup, no screaming, no messy fallout. We had just grown apart, and after months of arguments, we knew it was over. I blocked him on everything and moved on. Or so I thought. I live in a small apartment near campus, on the 2nd floor of an older building. It's not the quietest place. The creaks and groans of the old structure echo at all hours. But a few days after the breakup, I started hearing different noises. At first, they were subtle, quiet footsteps outside my window, like someone pacing on the street below. I brushed it off as my imagination, chalking it up to the usual city sounds. But as the nights passed, it got worse. There was something unsettling about the footsteps. They were slow and deliberate, as if someone was walking with purpose. But when I peeked out the window, no one was there. Eventually, I convinced myself that Ethan was behind it. He was a sweet guy, harmless, really, and part of me thought maybe he just missed me. I was stressed enough as it was, juggling a huge group project for my class, so I let it go, assuming he'd get bored and move on. That project was a big deal for me. I was responsible for editing the final video, which had to be submitted to our professor by midnight. After spending hours perfecting it, I hit send just before the deadline, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Little did I know that would be the last time I'd feel remotely at ease for a long time. The next day in class, we were scheduled to present the project. Our professor connected his laptop to the projector, and as the file I sent appeared on the screen, I felt a mix of nervousness and pride. I had spent countless hours editing the video, and I knew it was polished. But then the video started playing, and my stomach dropped. Instead of the project I had worked so hard on, a grainy, distorted video filled the screen. It was a person wearing a grotesque, twisted mask like something out of a nightmare. They weren't just sitting there silently. They were talking, and the things they were saying were horrifying. The masked figure rambled about me, about my professor, about everyone in the room. They spewed hateful, terrifying words about personal secrets and dark thoughts. Things I had never told anyone. The language they used was beyond sick. It was disturbing on a level I can't even describe. Everyone in the class sat frozen, unable to look away, while I felt like I was going to pass out. My professor, pale and shocked, let the video play longer than he should have, probably just as stunned as the rest of us. Finally, he paused it, but by then, the damage was done. Every eye in the room was on me. I felt their stares like burning holes in my skin. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. After what felt like an eternity, I bolted out of the classroom, tears streaming down my face. I knew I had to face the professor, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. After class, I gathered enough courage to go back. Shaking, I approached the professor, pleading with him that I had no idea how that video got submitted. He gave me a long, hard look before saying something that made my blood run cold. There were 2 emails, he said. One was your project, and the second, more recent, was, well, what you saw. I don't know how I held it together after that. The university launched an investigation, and it took weeks to clear my name. My email had been hacked, but by the time they figured it out, the damage was already done. The worst part? I couldn't even prove who was responsible. Then things escalated. A week later, I woke up to find that I'd been logged out of Snapchat. My heart sank. This only happens when someone else logs into your account, meaning I had been hacked again. I don't even want to think about what they saw. Snapchat held all sorts of personal messages and pictures, things I would never want anyone to see. In a panic, I called the police. They questioned Ethan, and to my surprise, he cooperated. He admitted to posting my personal details on a few forums right after the breakup, but denied having anything to do with the hacking. As much as I wanted to blame him, the evidence wasn't there. The police confirmed it wasn't him behind the hacking, but that only made things worse. If it wasn't Ethan, then who? Over the next few weeks, strange things kept happening. I received random friend requests on Snapchat and Instagram fake profiles with no pictures. Whenever I added them back, they would send me photos of me. Some were of me walking home from school, others of me through my apartment window. I blocked the profiles as quickly as I could, but it didn't stop. Every few days, a new account would pop up, sending me more and more pictures. I went to the police again, but there wasn't much they could do. There was no evidence of who it was or where they were operating from. I tried changing my passwords, locking down my social media, but it was like they always found a way back in. They knew my schedule, my favorite places, the exact time I would be home. And then came the night I saw him. I was lying in bed, trying to ignore the constant flood of friend requests and messages when I heard that familiar shuffling outside my window. Only this time it wasn't faint or distant, it was right there, just on the other side of the glass. My heart pounded as I crept toward the window, praying it was just my imagination, but it wasn't there. Standing in the alley below was a figure dressed in black, staring up at my window. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his gaze cold and unblinking. My breath caught in my throat as the figure raised his hand, waving slowly, deliberately. I stumbled back, grabbing my phone to call the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but the truth is, it hasn't stopped. Every day I receive new requests, new messages, new pictures. Whoever this person is, they know everything about me. My schedule, my routines, my life, and the police can't help. There's no evidence, no way to trace them. If you're listening to this, please be careful. Lock down your social media, change your passwords, and don't ignore the warning signs. Because once someone has your information, once they know where you live and what you do, you're never truly safe.